All right, we are live, and this is Your Creation 13. My name is Starseed Bey. How's everyone doing today? This should be a rather interesting video. I haven't talked about ETs and shapeshifters and all that good stuff in a while, so I figured it'd be a good time to start talking about that stuff again. And give a realistic perception on things. You know, give a realistic perception on ETs, a realistic perception on why everybody's fighting over landing on the moon again. It's like the world's stuck on repeat again. So we're going to be talking about that as well as Space Force is still a big thing. It's not really from the United States perception, but really as a whole, there's just a lot going on in space. Just in the sky itself. There's just so many things that we got to be paying more attention to. And just kind of looking at things from a realistic point of view, from a political point of view, and a distraction point of view as well. There's just so much going on in the world. So many distractions, you know, YouTube and Twitter and the news is just, it's crazy stuff, you know, and that's where we really have to start being honest about what we're learning, what we're observing, and things like that. You know, we just gotta quit choosing sides and just listen to our perceptions and try to figure out, you know, what the heck is going on at the end of the day. So that's pretty much what we're going to talk about today. So if this is your first time watching me, I am on Facebook and YouTube. So if you're watching me on YouTube, definitely like, subscribe, share out. I talk about a lot of different things, from spirituality to things that are going on in the world, just like we're talking about today, as well as other things. So definitely like and subscribe. I'm also on Facebook.com/Real Talk Adam Starseed Bey. So definitely like the page, share it out. If you got any questions or concerns, that's definitely the page to get a hold of me on at the moment. I'm also on Patreon.com/Adam Starseed Bey. The page is still in progress, but it is there for you guys if you are interested. So yeah, so we're gonna go ahead. I'm gonna actually talk about the China moon landing. It's rather interesting, and it kind of just came out of nowhere. I guess somewhere down the road, they shot the rocket out like in December. I'll read the article here in a second. And I never really heard anything about it. I didn't hear anything about it until it happened, which was, I think, June 3rd, I believe. I'll read the article here in a second. It just kind of came out of the blue that China landed on the dark side of the moon. And that's just rather interesting. You know, why the dark side of the moon? Why the moon? Why is the moon gaining an audience again, right? You know, it's like deja vu all over again with the moon landing. And I'm going to read on that as well. The first moon landing. There's a lot of political persuading, I don't know what kind of word you'd be. There's just a lot of politics involved, a lot of secret codings involved in these things. I just want to get a quick shout out to everybody in the chat room. How's it going, John? How's it going, Polar Bears? Definitely thank you guys for showing up. So yeah, it's rather interesting. So we're gonna go ahead and read this article here. And then we'll just kind of go from there. There's so many things to really talk about, but we'll just start from here. So the Chinese moon landing. The launch of Chang's 4 lunar probe in December. It has reached the far side of the moon, but some Chinese question whether the money was well spent. In Beijing, and yes, it was in January 3rd that it landed. Hours after a space probe from China made humanity's first landing on the far side of the moon, sending images of its surroundings back to Earth, the spacecraft deployed a rover on Thursday to take still more photographs and scan the surface of terrain never before traversed. You know, supposedly we've never seen the dark side of the moon, right? The rover weighing in at 300 pounds rolled off a ramp on the lander at 10:22, whatever, laying deep tracks in the moon's soft soil. Its solar panels spread like wings, according to the photograph released to state media. The rover is now programmed to roam around a barren vista towards a distinct crater. So it's going to some kind of crater. And the picture's interesting too. I don't remember how to flip the image on this thing. But it has like a, if you just look up Chinese moon landing, you'll see it. But it's interesting that the symbol they chose is identical to Star Trek's symbol. So definitely check out the Chinese moon landing pictures and stuff, and you'll see on the left-hand corner the interesting picture they decided to choose. It's definitely Star Trek-like. Let's see here. Chinese scientists hailed the landing of the Chang'e 4 probe as evidence of the country's growing structure in space exploration. Basically trying to make China look like a dominating force. It is human nature to explore the unknown world. Chief designer of the lunar mission from China National Space Administration said in an interview at the state television network. It is what our generation and the next generation are supposed to do. Compared with previous missions, however, the reaction to Thursday's milestone seems strikingly restrained both in the country's state-run news outlets and on social media. On Chinese most watched TV news program early Thursday evening, the landing, declared a success by officials at Mission Control, was not even one of the 4 top stories. Basically, it goes on to say, that it wasn't really a big deal that this thing landed on the dark side of the moon. Other people were kind of interested in other things, which made them think, was it really worth the money to send this thing into space? The Doodle of Chinese biggest search engine paid homage to the lander and its rover, but the news was relegated to the 5th item on whatever program. I got to be careful what I say, because they'll flag you for names, they'll flag you for whatever it is. It's annoying. It followed 3 reports on the doings of the country's leader, China's leader, and an item on a new government zone being developed outside. In interviews, several people said they had paid little attention to the moon landing. People didn't care. I mean, I didn't even hear anything about it until that day. The muted reaction was a sign that the novelty of country space missions has faded, but the coverage also appeared to reflect political and economic anxieties at a time when the Chinese government is trying to negotiate a truce in the trade war with the United States and respond to the worrisome cracks in the economy. It's interesting. This is the same thing that happened back in, I think it was 1969, right? Yes, 1969, when they did the first supposed moon landing. And I'll talk more about it here in a second, but it's the same stuff. Space Force, same thing. I talked about that months ago. It's the same thing. They had a Space Force, a space program back in, I believe it was the 50s or early 60s, somewhere between there. Same thing, same conversation. It's interesting. The immediate reaction was a sign that the novelty of the country's space mission had faded, blah, blah, blah. A woman in a cafe in China expressed pride in the space program, but says she had not followed the landing closely. She then expressed wonder about the cost. The economy is bad. The economy is bad everywhere. She said, "It is really a good thing for the country to. Is it really a good thing for the country to spin recklessly?" That's a very good point. The government does not disclose how much it spends on the space programs. Sounds just like the United States, doesn't it? But it has made it clear that this launch was part of an ambitious goal to establish China as the world's space powers. The world's space powers. That's a key thing right there. You know, where this stuff is just for political gain or something more. You know, it's something we have to pay attention to. We still live in this world, you know, and that's one of the key things I always tell people is that we still need to pay attention to this stuff. Whether it's fake, it's bogus, distractions, whatever it is, it's good to pay attention to this stuff. Anyways, so officials said the country hopes to establish a lunar base on the moon that could provide natural resources for the Earth, but also serve as a launching pad for further exploration. And then it just talks about the pictures. Talk about Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon. Definitely awesome song there. And then it goes on to say the spacecraft was the first to land intact on the side of the moon that perpetually faces away from Earth. A Soviet satellite took the first photographs of the far side of the moon in 1959, and the Apollo mission circled above it between 68 to 72. But the difficulty of communicating with Earth-bound scientists had always made the idea of landing there more complex, if not necessarily prohibitable. And that brings up some interesting things. I think I'm going to go ahead and quit reading because then they just kind of talk about other stuff there. So, you know, that's some interesting stuff, you know, and that's one of the key things that really shows, you know, when the United States supposedly went to the moon, how in the world did they keep communication? You know, that's one of the most talked about conspiracy things, is how did they maintain a communication? We can barely keep a signal with cell phones, right? You know, we're supposed to have real good service, but sometimes we have hiccup spots. So how in the world would they have communications in space? It makes no sense. It really does. So that's where you have to look deeper. You got to become your own detective and do some research on this stuff, because there's a lot more to it. There really is. So we'll go ahead and we'll talk about Apollo, because this all kind of ties in together. So Apollo 11 was a space flight that landed the first two people on the moon, with, of course, the famous Neil Armstrong and lunar module pilot Mr. Buzz. Both Americans landed the Apollo in 1969. Armstrong became the first person to step onto the lunar surface 6 hours after the supposed landing. Aldrin joined him about 20 minutes later. They spent about 2.25 hours together outside the spacecraft, collecting stuff and so on and so forth to bring back to Earth. They also had a pilot named Michael, piloted the Columbia alone in lunar orbit while they were on the moon's surface, and so on and so forth. Apollo 11 was launched by Saturn V rocket, and it's always interesting. They always named all of these rockets and hurricanes and satellites and all this stuff after planets, Greek mythology, Greek words, German words, things like that. That's where you really gotta pay attention. And I did research. Man, I was gonna do that too. If you look up the meaning of Houston, the name. Let me look this up real quick because this is interesting. Let's see, Houston. Let's see if I spell it right here. Houston name meaning. I try to keep talking here so there's no pause moments here, but this is kind of interesting. Let me see if I can find the right one here. I think it's this one. course, I'm probably not going to be able to find it. But it had something to do with the spirit, or taking flight, something like that. Let me see, maybe Wikipedia has something on it. Let's see here. I ain't gonna be able to find it. I found it on my phone, but I'm using it at the moment. But just pay attention to words. Any kind of words, you know, that's the key thing. You learn about military tactics and strategies and how they use key words. You know, they have code words, and those code words mean something. And if you translate the names, you know, it means something more. So you always have to look. You know, things aren't what they seem. You know, just because you see something, you hear something, doesn't mean that's what it is, right? You know, it can be a distraction or a ploy. I mean, that's what the government is. That is what the government does, is it generates, you know, what do they call it? National security, right? You know, there's all these key structures and things like that, you know, and how to keep things scraped under the carpet, I guess I could say, right? It's not a bad thing, you know. I mean, to keep things going, I mean, it's not easy. I mean, you can watch TV shows and things of that nature, and it really gives you a basic idea. It doesn't mean that's all true, but it gives you a basic idea of what it takes to keep things under wrap, especially when we live in a world that is supposed divided by countries and states and all that stuff. So we have to look at it as a whole and be realistic about it. You know, it's not just about just believing in the conspiracy theories and just, you know, saying that Democrats are bad or Republicans are bad, or both of them, you know, are just puppets. I've talked about that many times myself. You know, we have to look at the deeper thing. You know, what's going on underneath all this stuff. Again, I watched this documentary on had to have been the History Channel about the levels of people, and like the president is like on like a level 7 or something like that, but there's so many more people that are above the president. You know, that the president, suppose if things run the way they're supposed to, the chain of command scenario is that there's more people that are higher than the president. You know, I've been watching Supergirl. I know I'm kind of getting distracted here, but I've been watching Supergirl, and that's kind of what sparked this video, other than the Chinese moon landing, is that, you know, is that there's so many hidden things that we're unaware of. And this brings into the whole ET thing. You know, I mean, it's hard to say. I was actually doing research before I went online here, seeing if I could find something on it. It's hard to say if we can leave planet Earth, right? You know, we can go into the atmosphere of planet Earth. You know, that's been proven. You know, we can go up into the atmosphere above the clouds and whatnot. But can we leave the planet? You know, I still say that like suppose if there really is a space station up there, that's kind of a mystery as well. But if there is a space station up there, I'm going to say it's probably within the Earth's atmosphere, right? The Earth's atmosphere, not outside the planet, but within the planet. You know, you look into the dome structure of things, you know, again, hard to say how it looks. I've never been out in space before, but it would make a lot of sense, right? And that we can only go so high up in the sky. And this leads into a theory. I've always had this theory myself, you know, is the moon and the stars, are they connected within the Earth's atmosphere? You know, are they a part of the structure? You know, it's hard to say. You know, is there an actual universe outside? Don't know. But with the moon and everything, you know, and how it just kind of, I don't know how you'd explain it. I mean, you could look from a scientific point of view of things, but it's just there's just too many weird things. You know, there's too many talks about the moon landing. NASA admits that they can't go to the moon. They can send stuff to the moon, but supposedly they can never revisit the moon because of all of the supposed radiation. And then there's like the not the magnetic field, but there's just a lot of radiation or some kind of crap that it's impossible to go to the moon. So how did they go to the moon in 69? If we got extreme advanced technology now, we should be able to go to the moon just like that. We should be able to go to Mars and whatnot. So, you know, there's a lot of delays on a lot of things. So that's what I said. At the end of the day, when I'll continue reading this, is that, you know, I really feel that all this stuff is, it's called something else, but it's basically kind of like a psyop or a secret mission. Of sorts, you know, a way of distracting us from something else, you know, what better way to distract the world or distract the leaders, you know, whether, you know, the world leaders really do fight amongst each other or not, it's hard to say, but it's all just a way of distractions to keep us away from other things or just to make us look stupid. That's definitely a key thing there as well. Let's see. Polar Bear says, we're being held hostage, I swear. And, you know, there is a lot of talk about that as well, is that, you know, that this planet is a prison planet. You know, and it's, you know, there's two theories. Either we're trapped, the human form itself, right? All life on Earth, we're trapped on this planet. Either we're trapped here or we're keeping stuff away from coming to Earth. You know, whatever it may be, it's something. As a whole, you look out throughout history, humanity, the main job that we had and still do have is maintaining the Earth, taking care of the Earth, nurturing the Earth. That is what this human body is for. You know, that's what this human flesh is for. And that's what we have to do. Take care of the planet. Life is good. We did our job. We leave this body. We move on to the next. You know, but it's really hard to say. You know, there's also theories about, and I got the theories as well, is, you know, they're trying to create a wall or a border, a wall border to keep people in or out. You know, and that can also be a code word as well. You know, are they trying to keep the United States people in so we can't leave? Or are they trying to keep stuff out because there's something that's going to take place? Then this goes into the North Pole, which would really be, let's see, what is it? It's either the North or South Pole. I got so many different theories on that. Whatever the case may be, you know, there's just this, you can't go past Alaska, yeah, or Antarctica, Alaska, somewhere around there. You know, we can't go so far away in that, you know, it's forbidden, you know, and there's many claims, you know, that there's like this sheet of ice that's either keeping something in or keeping us out. I don't know, but there is just there's so many things that just seem to keep us trapped, keep us brainwashed. You know, that's what these dominating things are all talking about. You know, talking about, oh, the United States is going to say they landed on the moon to create hope for humanity, and it's interesting, right? Because what better way to make your country great is to accomplish something great, to accomplish something extraordinary, to give the people hope for the future, because they were getting out of the, the Cold War. We're going to read this here in a second. I think they were getting out of the Cold War and moving into the Soviet Union, and things like that. So they were looking at ways to better things, because the world was in a bad place back then, man. People were starving, broke. It was a pretty interesting time for people. So what better way than to encourage the American audience than to lie to them and just say, you know, that they accomplished something great. And it can be that way again. You know, China could be doing this as well as trying to look like they're creating something great, or trying to get us ready or prepared. You know, and it's just politics, man. I mean, look, Trump, he's starting to run for president again, and he's starting the same thing again. It's ridiculous, man. It gets old. It gets frustrating. You know, I hate talking about this stuff. Hate's a strong word, but I really dislike talking about this stuff because of just the dishonesty and stupidity that surrounds all this, you know, and it makes people dumb. We have to think for ourselves, you know. We have to look at ways to better the world, to create more sufficient things, to expand life, to prepare future generations for things to come. You know, I mean, Tesla, you look into all of his creations, and those things were pushed under the rug because they were great tools that would have benefited humanity. And to me, it's stupid that we don't bring in this kind of technology, because there's money there. You can invest in this kind of technology. It betters humanity, betters the lifespan of things. You know, this crap of the world being overpopulated is garbage, because it's not that the world's getting overpopulated. It's just that people aren't learning to migrate out. I mean, look at the big cities, right? You know, it's just too many people in a small location, right? You know, I mean, city looks big when you're in it, but in actuality, it's just a small location. People need to expand out. That's why there's no job opportunities. That's why there's no business opportunities or growth within cities or in countries in general. You know, it's a lack of leadership for one, but just a lack of the future. You know, looking at the future. You know, why are we focusing so much on space? You know, that's something that we have to ask ourselves. You know, why are we continuously spending billions of dollars? And that's just what that lady said. You know, why did the Chinese government spend so much money for them to go to the moon when their economy is crap? What's the logic in it? You know, I say that there's stuff happening up there in space. I was driving home. I was going to take a picture, man, but there was a big old cloud in the sky, right? A big old cloud, but it just looked like a flat sheet. It looked like ice, actually. A flat sheet, and it just was flat edged underneath. Bizarrest thing ever. And it wasn't disappearing or moving like a cloud should. It was really weird. And there's a lot of weird things that just happen in the sky. I mean, other than the chemtrails. But even the chemtrails, I say that there's something more to it. You know, they're either spraying those chemtrails to hide stuff. Like say there's like spacecraft and stuff flying around, so they spray the sky so we can't see it. There's also theories that say, you know, the chemtrails actually put chemicals in the sky, which has been proven to make people sick. But there's also the weirdest things is the patterns that they create in the sky as well. You know, these patterns aren't just something weird. You know, I've seen many different weird things, you know, from them making X's. I think that's the most common one. But they'll actually make like squares. Like they'll just, in the bigger cities, that's what they do, is they'll make squares. I've also seen sigils. They made sigils, magic symbols in the sky. That's a weird one. Actually, I took a picture of one that looked like a supposed pentagram in the sky. So it could be magic spells they're doing in the sky. It's hard to say. There's some interesting ones floating on the internet now of these circular looking clouds. Supposedly it was created by a meteor, and we gotta look at that too. Are they really meteors, or are they spacecraft being shot out of the sky? Man, there's just so much stuff. It makes more sense that it would be spacecraft and then these supposed rocks. We've just been lied to a lot. We really have to start doing our own research and becoming detectives and figuring this stuff out. So anyways, let's go ahead and we'll read some more of this stuff. Kind of give you guys an idea or a history lesson, because it's happening all over again. What goes around comes around. History repeats itself. You look at the founding fathers, and the supposed founding fathers, and that's a joke in itself. But it's a repeated cycle over and over again. So anyway, so Apollo 11 was launched by Saturn V rocket from Kennedy's Space Center in Florida, and was the 5th crewed mission of NASA's Apollo program. And of course, what is Apollo? Apollo is a Greek god, right? The Apollo spacecraft had 3 parts, and so on and so forth, blah blah blah. But that's interesting too. I really never even thought about that. But Apollo is what? It's from Greek mythology. And what did we have back in the day? You read the Bible and things like that. The fight between the Middle East and Rome, right? Rome. And you do research on Apollyon. I think it was Apollyon was the one that created the Archon system, and that ended up migrating over here into the United States and so on and so forth. Again, you gotta do your research on it. This Apollo spacecraft, blah blah blah. After being sent to the moon by the Saturn V's 3rd stage, the astronauts separated the spacecraft from it and traveled for 3 days until they entered lunar orbit. Again, code word 3 days. Armstrong and Aldrin moved into the Eagle. Again, code word. And landed in the Sea of Tranquility. Again, another code word. Let's look at Sea of Tranquility real quick and see what we get. Let's see. It looks like it's actually a part. They actually named that. The Sea of Tranquility is actually a part of the moon that I guess they named. Let's see. It consists of basalt, whatever. I don't really know if any of that's true or not. A lot of scientific stuff. Let's see, Mare Tranquillitatis was named in 1651 by astronomers Francisco and Giovanna in their lunar map. Earlier lunar chronograph had given the feature different names, so on and so forth. Well, really not much there. Sea of Tranquility is really just talking about the moon, so that's kind of interesting. Well, they would name it the Sea of Tranquility. Let's look up the word tranquility and see what that means. Sometimes I'll just spend all day. Hey, how's it going, Travis? Let's see. Travis says these patterns, which I was talking about chemtrails, these patterns are more magnetic and keep those heavy metals up longer. Look up Bill Gates with Harvard working to block the sun out for 2019. I've heard about that too. In actuality, I've heard that it's already happened. That kind of, you know what? That's interesting you bring that up. So remember we had that eclipse last year. was it last year? Yeah, it was last year, I think, where we had the moon block the sun and it was dark, right? Bizarrest thing ever. You know, I was watching with my parents and my kids. It was bizarre. And the weird thing about it is that the whole atmosphere changed, animals changed, like there was birds and stuff like that. Everything just went silent. Crickets were starting to chirp. And it looked like the sun was setting. And my mom kept saying that over and over again to my kids. She's like, look, it's like the sun is setting. The sun is setting. So this goes into a whole different thing of, you know, I'm not a scientist or anything like that, but it just, when that eclipse happened, it changed things. It changed things. How in the world did it create that? Because it didn't darken the whole sky, right? Because theoretically it should have made it look like nighttime, but it didn't. It made it look like a sunset. But the sun really didn't set. So how did it create that kind of atmosphere? If you were there, you experienced it, you know what I'm talking about. It was weird. But a lot of people were saying it was actually another government thing, or just a thing of seeing if they really could cover up the sun, or create an artificial sun, or ways to manipulate the structure, right? You know, there's many theories. I've talked about this before. If the moon is really even there, right? You know, there's people say that the moon is holographic. It could be hollow. It could be a satellite. We don't know. See, Travis says, yep, it was really dim in Tennessee where I was. And it was a bizarre thing. It's going to happen again. Is it this year? It's this year, next year, I think. I don't know. It might be in 2024, but there's supposed to be another one. It should be quite interesting. But, you know, that brings it to a lot of things. And I wouldn't put it past anybody. I mean, we have advanced technology. They don't let us know about it, but we see hints about it. And they give us hints. You know, television shows are supposed to be fantasy, right? But there's so many things that hit home in those shows. Again, I was talking about Supergirl. And they have this secret government agency where they make sure that there's no ET threat that is going to harm the world or harm the United States. You know, and that hits home for me, because I guarantee you that's a real thing. But another thing I'm learning with this Supergirl, and who knew you could learn stuff from TV shows, right? I wasn't even going to watch Supergirl, but it just kind of, something told me to watch it, so I've been watching it, and it just, a lot of this stuff is hitting home. And there's a character called what's his name, Martian Manhunter. You know, if you look up DC Universe, you look at Martian Manhunter. I guess he is supposedly, as I'm watching it, he is the last of his race, and he's from planet Mars, right? Planet Mars. And they go to the history lesson, all that stuff about that. But as a whole, what ended up happening is that he ended up on Earth, and the secret agency discovered him, and the government, the United States government, was told to go and take him out. No questions about it. Take him out. He's a threat. Take him out. But what happens is that Supergirl's adopted dad, right? Because Supergirl was adopted, ended up being a part of that mission, and he became friends with the Martian, and the other guy that was going to take him out. Well, Supergirl's dad ended up fighting with him, and that guy fell off the cliff, and then Supergirl's dad ended up passing away, but now I'm learning that he didn't pass away. So I'm still watching it. So with the Martian, he can shapeshift, right? And this is a key thing, is shapeshifting. I want to talk about that too. Man, I'm almost out of time too. But he can shapeshift, so he decided to shapeshift into that leader that fell off the cliff, and he just was that the whole time. So like, he was in the secret alien program, right, for 10 years, and no one knew that it was the Martian for 10 years, right? Shapeshifters, you know, it's the power of shapeshifters. You don't know who's who. And this brings it to a lot of interesting things I want to talk about here in a second. Brings it to a lot of interesting things, is that, you know, just because someone looks different, not from this planet, we can't judge them for that. You know, just because they look different, we can't judge them. And they're bringing in very interesting points, because the episode I just got done watching, there was no questions. You know, they found out that he was a shapeshifter, and they wanted to get rid of him. They wanted to lock him up, and they just said he was a threat, period. They didn't care who or what he was. You know, he was a good person for 10 years. He kept the United States safe and all that stuff, right? Good man, good man. But at the end of the day, because they found out he was a Martian, they didn't care about that. They considered him a threat. They considered that he was lying the whole time. And of course, because if he would have exposed himself, they would have took him right then and there. So it's insane. And that's what we're going to end up seeing here, is that if ETs did show themselves, they would be considered a threat in the United States' eyes, and probably in the world's eyes. And what they bring up with Supergirl, you know, is that even Supergirl is considered a threat, because she's strong, right? She's strong, and it makes humans look weak, like, you know, they can't take care of themselves and things of that nature. You know, we can't have that mentality. We can't. You know, businesses have that kind of mentality. A lot of people have that kind of mentality, that they always see competition as a threat, right? You know, businesses always see competition as a threat. They always think they have to do one step above the other, and so on and so forth, right? You know, business strategies. And that's the same way with how countries are run. They run the same way. They got to get a step above. That's why I'm talking about the Chinese moon landing, because now China's looking like a dominating force, making the United States look foolish. So it's stupid. It's all political game, but it's something more. It's distracting us. And there's a reason why, again, they're talking about the Space Force, because stuff is going to start showing up, whether it's military spacecraft that's actually, you know, built by the United States. They're just showing off their advanced technology. Whether it is actual beings, and I've stated this many times on my channel, is that there is floating islands in the sky, cloaked ships and things of that nature. How that works, I don't know. I mean, you would have to be really up in Earth's atmosphere to maintain that. So there's a couple key things, because I mean, because if they were cloaked and a airplane or helicopter was flying by and it ran right into the island or the cloaked ship, you know, obviously, you know, we'd see some disasters. So it's hard to say how that works. You know, maybe these ET beings or whatever kind of beings that are watching over Earth, you know, maybe they just kind of transport the ships from one destination to the other, so they don't hit the side of the ships and islands, it's hard to say, but I definitely think there's a lot more to it. I really do. I think that's why humanity's leaders have the fascination to take control over the skies, because I think there's a lot more going on up there. Yeah, it's a lot of stuff, man. It really is. Let's see here. So Travis was saying something about it could be going to the moon is going east to west this next time. Not sure how that's possible. Yep, I've heard about that as well. And how the moon and the sun, they're going in different directions. Again, there's just that when that happened, honestly, if the government was smart, they would have covered up the clouds. Or they would have covered it up with clouds, so we couldn't see it. But I think we were meant to see it. I think that it was set up for something. I know a lot of people were scared about it. There was even prophecies talking about this kind of stuff, is that you're not supposed to be out there, because it's not the first time this stuff's happened. It's throughout history. There's been many. This has happened before, where the sun was blocked up by the moon, and they say that it was a curse and things of that nature. Our ancestors made a lot of stories back then. They've made stories about the constellations in the sky and all that stuff as well. And that's definitely, another video that could be made, is talking about astronomy and the zodiac and all that stuff. I'm learning about that too. A lot more, just looking more into it, because it's definitely very fascinating in that manner as well. But I really do feel there was something quite interesting about that, and I think we'll be seeing that more in the future. I'll still never get, and they're still working on that too. I mean, we got the holographic technology. I remember years ago they were talking about how it would be very easy to create a holographic projection of Christ coming back, right? Christ, or ET invasion, or whatever it may be. There's so many things that can happen. There's also the things as well you look up on the internet as well, about these California fires and whatnot, and there's a lot of videos out there that it looks like there's laser beams shooting from the sky down, creating these fires and things of that nature as well. So we gotta look at that. There's also the blue beams that showed up in New York. You have to do research on that. I mean, they say it was electric outage of some kind, right? But it's really bizarre stuff. It really is. There's a lot of stuff going on in the sky, and just paying attention to how it works. I was watching something interesting from Mr. B 3333 or something like that. He talks a lot about weird phenomenons in the sky. The latest one that's circulating, it's hard to say if it's real or not, circulating at the moment, is that this lady took a picture of the sun, and out of each picture there was one picture that looked like there's a stargate, literal stargate, right next to the sun, and people were trying to debunk it, seeing if it was a lens or whatever it may be. But Mr. B ended up trying to get that picture as clear as he could, and it looks like a stargate. It's hard to say. It's hard to say if people have or they photoshopped these pictures. Don't know, but we have to look at all of these possibilities, that there's stuff going on. We have to figure it out for ourselves. We need to quit being scared. I mean, that's a lot of what these shows are created, like Men in Black and things of that nature. As they say, if you get too close to getting that knowledge out there, you become a threat, right? but I really feel that people are chosen to bring the stuff out there. And I think people are targeted to let people know that, you know, sometimes you can go too far into things. You know, humanity's not ready for everything. You know, if humanity found out about ET beings, you know, like I said, you know, if humanity found out about floating islands and cloaked ships, and they decloak themselves, right? That can make people trip out, freak out, man, right? It'd be a whole different ballgame. If the United States government is real and they don't know about the ETs or how they work, but they have that knowledge that there could be cloaking technology involved, they could see that as a threat, you know. And it's sad because they would cause a battle first before having conversations. It's action instead of talking. You know, it's not good to trust. I mean, trust, you know, I feel trust has to be earned. I really do. I mean, if you're too trusting, that's how you get conned into things. That's how you make bad decisions and things. You know, you really have to strategize your life. You got to be mature about things, you know, and you got to take things one step at a time. You can't be too trustworthy, but you got to gain trust in some way, shape, or form. You got to use some trust, or otherwise you'll never be able to grow a business, grow a friendship, and things of that nature as well. So, you know, it's part of business strategy, and that's something you got to do in your daily life. You know, I always talk about business and how to treat your life like a business. That's just part about maturity in life. It really is. So anyways, you know, that's pretty much about it. You know, it's just paying more attention to this stuff. Shapeshifters, let's talk about that real quick. I think this is the most fascinating one to me, is the shapeshifters. I've talked about the shapeshifters many times on this channel before. Our ancestors have talked about shapeshifters. The natives are huge on shapeshifters. You know, there's a lot of talks about on how these witch doctors or voodoo doctors or whatever it may be, the magic, dark magic people, they'll summon these shapeshifters from another reality. It's bizarre stuff, but they come from caves. They come from caves, and if you do research on the cave beings, you know, that gets into the reptilian thing and whatever it may be. You know, it's hard to say. You know, reptilians definitely have a huge history on this planet. You know, look into Saturn. You know, there's a lot of talks that is the planet, the reptilian planet is Saturn. According to a lot of super soldiers and space programs, I think of that nature as well. But it could be interesting, you know. I mean, talk about Supergirl again, talking about Martian Manhunter. He's from Mars, you know, he's green, he looks reptilian, right? He'd be a shapeshifter. Maybe that's why the latest technology that people are getting out there, and China's a big one right now. It's kind of interesting. About it is face recognition. Is basically iPhone is really connected with this as well, you know. And what is Apple? Apple is the apple, right? The eye of the apple, or Adam and Eve, right? The tree of knowledge of good and evil, whatever it may be. But photo recognition is a big thing with Apple right now. Same with ID on your fingerprint. They're also doing retina scans as well. I think that's the next step. I don't think it's I think it's, for one, it's just to identify people, but I think it goes on a much deeper level, because if we really do have shapeshifters among us, you know, it could be our world leaders, and it's very out there, very sci-fi style, but we can't leave that possibility out there. You know, is that there is a huge chance that the world is being overrun by shapeshifters, could be overrun by different beings already. Some could be good, some could be bad. It's hard to say, but if you use facial recognition, it could be a good thing, because then you'll be able to identify who is the real Adam and who might be somebody else that is portraying me, right? You know, there could be some kind of little detail that was left out that could distinguish the real me from the person that's trying to be me, right? You know, we've heard about clones before and things of that nature. And we can't rule out that possibility either. There really is clones out there too. But I really do feel that that's the next step, is that we need to look into is shapeshifters. I think that's a big one. It always reminds me of the Simpsons episode about that. They always talked about these reptilian beings that have one eye taking over the planet. They always try to look at ways to take over. They take over the president's body. And I guess one of the later episodes, probably in the late probably 2010, 11, 12, I don't know, when they were predicting that Trump was going to be president anyways. I ain't going to go into that crap. I would say, you know, it's part of politics. Simpsons is probably just used as politics. But they showed that the presidents were really ETs in disguise. So it brings a lot of things in there. But that's pretty much what this video is all about, is that we got to be realistic about things. So many people love to create these shock values about ETs, be like, oh, the Pleiadians are taking care of us, and I was hearing about this yesterday. I mean, I'm good friends with these guys, but you know, sometimes I think we have to have a realistic perception on things. You know, is that, you know, it's hard to say what kind of ETs are watching over us, whatever it may be. You know, it's hard to say how that works. You know, are we part of an experiment of choice? You know, is there chosen ones down here that are just living in this experience in life, and a lot of people really are fake or shapeshifters? That leads into the Truman Show, right? With Jim Carrey, the Truman Show. That was quite an interesting movie, and how he felt that his whole reality was real until he started to venture out into the world. And that brings into a lot of very interesting things. You know, is that he thought that the sky was real and things like that, but he ended up going out there and boom, he found out that his whole world, that he was lied to for all those years. You know, he lived in a false reality. And, you know, and that can be an interesting thing. You know, if we have all these beings watching us, seeing if we're ready for the next step. You know, it reminds me of you know, choosing your soldiers wisely, right? And be like, all right, let's see what humans are ready for the next course or the next chapter, right? In this, you know, recruiting people, right? I talked about that with the Space Force, is that they were recruiting people for the Space Force. You know, could that be secret code for the next thing? You know, is that, you know, they're going to choose very mature, smart-minded people for soldiers for other world, right? There's many different layers. You know, you got the stupid, ignorant people. You know, they're out there. There's so many of them out there, man, that thrive off of their sexual preference and their pride and their political views, and just real basic stuff. And then you got people fighting over their color, and just really or what's that word? Very monkey-like style, caveman style, cave people, cave people going backwards in life. So it really would distinguish things. If these beings were looking for a select few for the next chapter, and I've been hearing about this a lot with my friends. Talking about the hero's journey, is that each of us who take a spiritual journey, end up going on a hero's journey. Discovering more about self, learning more about life, observing life outside self, making choices, making decisions. And life really gets rather interesting because you begin to be the hero of your book of life. You go on this journey of self-exploration and discovery, what is real, what isn't real, and things like that. And I've talked about Christ before. Christ is my foundation. And, that's really what Christ's story was about as well, is overcoming the obstacles of humanity, and how humanity can get so distracted in their own mindsets and their own human doctrines that they lose focus of what's really going on, right? And that's what's going on in the real world right now, is that people get so focused on human doctrines that they lose touch with what's really going on. They don't question of what's going on, looking at all these different kind of matters, without it just being labeled conspiracy theories or what ifs or make believe. This is make believe. This stuff isn't real. It's hard to say about anything, but we have to be mature about this stuff. We have to talk about it in a mature manner, not be looking for views. That's the thing that frustrates the heck out of me, is that people will create these shock value videos. And again, that's why I was talking about ETs and the moon landing and stuff, is that people blow this stuff out of proportion just to get ratings, and people watch this stuff. But you got to be able to learn by what you're watching. When I make videos, I want to make sure you guys are learning, and I set up stuff so then you can go out there and do research, be mature about it. Don't believe everything that you hear, but do your research and look into things. Question things and just observe. Go outside. Like I said, go outside, observe the sky, see what you see out there. What are you finding out there? How do you view the stars? What do you see with the stars? What do you see with the planets? Do the planets look like planets, or do the planets look like bigger stars? Are they stars? Are they living beings? Are they living entities? Are they the fallen angels? What are they? Is the moon real? Is the moon fake? Did we land on the moon? What's going on with the moon? What is the sun? Is it the universal sun? Is the sun just part of the earth? It's a reflection from somewhere. You look into the inner earth, there's an inner earth sun, and that sun reflects somehow, and it projects, and it just goes a cycle through the earth like a clock. I've heard about that too, about a clock, and how the sun and the moon and all the planets and stuff like that, they move around like a big clock. The zodiac, signs is a big clock in the sky, and that shows us the signs and wonders of the time, right? The seasons of the time, getting ready for the harvest, getting ready for planting seeds, getting ready for winter, things of that nature. We have to look at these things, as a whole, the deeper, simpler meaning of things. People don't look at this. They look for the shock value. They want that shock value. They want to feel they're in the know, feel they're in the now moment, just it's just all about views, and there's very few people that really are open and honest about this stuff and bring a real point of view about it. People, that's the key thing. I'm going to go ahead and end it like this, is that's the key thing, is that people don't want to have honest conversations about this stuff because their personal beliefs or their walk of life, because there's many walks of life, get in the way of making solutions in life. Looking at the possibilities of, are ETs real, ETs fake? Did we really go into space? Is there space? Is Christ real, not real? Is there a God? Is angels real, not real? All of these things, right? We have to have a realistic perception on all of these things. Hey, how's it going, Jay? We really do. And once we become mature-minded in this stuff, then we can go deeper. We can learn more. Learn the power of meditation. That's our key. That's our tool, is meditation, is praying, learning about the self, and then learn about our empathic abilities and things like that. So then we can be better and more in tune with what's happening in the world. You can tell when people are lying and you can tell when people are telling the truth. But as a whole, we have to be mature in all things. So as a whole, like I said, I have, there's just so many things that really point, like I said, you got to become your detective. There's a lot of documented facts that make us aware that there is different kind of beings on this planet. They've been here for a long time. They have the power to shapeshift, whether they're good ones or bad ones. I really feel that it's both, just like with humanity, right? We got the good people and we got the bad people. But I really feel that's probably going to be the next step. I really feel that something will spark, and we'll learn about the shapeshifters, and that will bring into other possibilities of beings that have hid themselves away, and the more likely they'll be in the secret services, and things of that nature. There's a lot of things that I feel are going to unfold slowly. Oh my gosh, very slowly. It's almost annoying how slowly things go. But I think everything will be revealed when everybody's ready for it, right? Everybody's ready for it. When people start to get tired of the distractions, which they are, they get tired of the politics, which people are getting tired of the politics. And I think that's just the next step. We have to look at these secret forces and services. Again, if you guys want to watch Supergirl, I definitely recommend it. It's on Netflix currently, so if you got Netflix, definitely check it out. Only time I get to watch TV is when I cook dinner, so that's about the only time I can watch. So that's what I watch when I cook dinner. So yeah, I definitely recommend Supergirl. Watching that, at least the first season so far has been pretty good, and it gives you a wider perception on these secret services. It gets real deep, and we got to think outside the box. Is there bad people? There is, but there's also good people. There's a lot of good people. There's a lot of good people that care about us, that are probably looking at ways to better humanity. And maybe that's the key thing in politics, is to let humanity think that these countries are fighting against each other, but in actuality they got these secret services trying to figure things out, getting ready for the next step in humanity's lifespan. It's hard to say. I throw the stuff out there, throw these ideas out there for you guys to have a bigger picture of things, a wider perception of these things, to make you look at life differently. That's what I'm all about. That's what this channel is all about. So yeah, so I got to get out of here. I got to go to the gym before I get tired. So love yourself. Keep shining bright. Do research. Become your own personal investigator, private eye, whatever you want to call yourself. And just be mature about this stuff. Look into things. Take it for what it is. Do further research. And just keep going from there. Keep going. I've always say this all the time, is that life is more spiritual than it is physical. There's so many things that happen spiritually with us, whether it be through energy, whatever it may be. That's the key focus, because when you're in tune spiritually, you're in tune with your emotions more, you're in tune empathically, and it's a whole different world. It really is, because if you're so focused in the physical reality, the materialistic reality of things, where you're just staring at your TV 24/7 and putting makeup on, or worrying about your sexual preference, whatever it is, it's all of these distractions to keep you away from thinking for yourself, being smart in what you do. Your life is a business. You got to be mature and respectful with yourself and with others. That's just a part of life. It really is. So we got to think. We have to think. We can't let all of these shock value videos and Twitter, and all this stuff about ETs and what ifs and Ancient Alien says it best with that guy with the crazy hair, man. He's like, I'm not sure if it's aliens, but yeah, I think we were visited by aliens. Right? So, and that at the end of the day, is that we don't know, we don't have all the answers, but there's definitely something out there. And the key thing to that is these secret services, is that I really do feel that there is a secret service out there that is actually taking care of us, and weeding out all of the bad weeds within the system. It will take time, but I do feel that over time, we'll begin to see this world change in a whole new way. At least that's where my prayers and will and intent is going towards. And if you put your will and intent into that as well, we'll see a brighter future. It's all about that will and intent at the end of the day. So yeah, so I just keep talking on and on. So love yourself, keep shining bright. Thank you all for joining me in chat room. Really appreciate it, and I'll talk to you all later.